Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by viewers like you.
This week on New Mexico in Focus, an impasse in Albuquerque. A city councilor explains why she went from supporting homeless camps to moving to permanently ban them.
I think that as elected officials, we have the duty to be able to represent and say, well, this is what most people are saying they don't want.
A first-hand look at the damage from the largest wildfire in state history as our NMPBS crews repair a major piece of our infrastructure. New Mexico in Focus starts now. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm your host, Gene Grant. A staffing crisis is creating chaos at jails across the state. It's gotten so bad that in Otero County, the jail is moving inmates to other nearby counties. Here in Bernalillo County, a longtime corrections officer at the MDC has been placed on leave after media published concerns that he sent to county leaders. I'll talk through it all with The Line in about 25 minutes. At the bottom of the show, we head to Mora for a look at the damage done by the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire. That's as President Joe Biden expands the amount of federal funding to clean up from that disaster. But we start with the hot button issue in Albuquerque, the future of homeless camps in the city. In June, council voted to allow the creation of safe outdoor spaces. The first space approved was near I-25 in Manal. It was meant to act as a replacement of sorts for Coronado Park, which, as you know, the city cleared out last week. Now in August, council has voted to stop the creation of any new homeless camps while it considers a permanent ban. It was a fairly startling reversal that's caused an uproar on nearly every side of this issue. I wanted to understand why councilors changed their minds so quickly. So earlier this week, I caught up with District 4's Brooke Bassan to ask how our city leaders are approaching this situation. District 4 City Councilor Brooke Bassan with us today gets a little clarity on what's happening with homeless encampments, and particularly the vote taken last Monday to place a moratorium until next August on encampments. And there's another piece of legislation that's yet to be discussed as well. Council, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, this is a hot subject. There's no doubt about it. It's on everyone's minds now. Something seems to have elevated now that the moratorium vote has happened. Let me ask you quickly about that vote, and then we can kind of peel back to before the vote, some things that have happened. My first question, why a whole year? Why such a length of time for this moratorium?
Sure. So kind of, and I'm going to tie into some of that peeling back at the same time because they go hand in hand.
Gotcha.
The moratorium is not to just kick the can down the road, contrary to what a lot of people think. The moratorium is there so that we can put a halt on any pending applications and any future applications from coming in regarding safe outdoor spaces, while the second piece of legislation, which I've introduced, goes through the proper channels. So there's an ordinance I've introduced that will actually repeal all verbiage of safe outdoor spaces from our integrated development ordinance, the IDO. And that has to go through the Environmental Planning Commission first. So it's scheduled to be heard by the commission in September. And, you know, they have different avenues they can take, whether they defer it or whether they end up voting in favor of it or not. But that's how it will eventually come before the council. So in a way of making sure that they had time and this ordinance had time to go through the proper channels rather than just a bombarded amendment, this was where the moratorium came in.
Gotcha. Another question, why a permanent ban? Are we not in a try all things situation with our homeless here? Are encampments that bad that we have to ban them forever?
So, I mean, this again goes back to sort of the beginning of this situation, right? I was a sponsor of something called Living Lots that failed the council. So I don't even want to get into the nitty gritty with that, but safe outdoor spaces is what I would consider a second step, not even a first step. So in hindsight, I wish I would have really had that fallen in place when we voted on safe outdoor spaces. We do have that, the administration has been saying they want to take all tools in the toolbox approach. But once we voted in favor and passed the safe outdoor spaces, I began to hear, and this in the public with different press conferences and media alerts, that the administration is not really going to change their approach to enforcement on different properties in front of businesses or at city parks. And that was something that I was under the impression that it would change a little bit, if not even more than that. So that took me by surprise. But then you add in the overwhelming amount of people that reached out saying that they were in absolute opposition of safe outdoor spaces. And I think that as elected officials, we have the duty to be able to represent and say, well, this is what most people are saying they don't want. And I recognize that there are people in favor of safe outdoor spaces, including myself at one point in time. But we have to listen to the majority of Albuquerque. And because they are saying that we need to find a solution, but this is not one that they're comfortable with, I think that we have a duty to make sure to follow through with that.
Mm-hmm. On the show last week, I was a bit critical of you and others who had made a turnaround in this. So I'm very curious, what was was there a common thread or theme that you heard from folks who were not crazy about this idea? I mean, was it something, there had to be something beyond just the numbers to make you change your mind. What was out there that you were hearing?
Sure. I mean, there's a variety of comments, obviously. So you have people that thought that sanctioned encampments like safe outdoor spaces would become more Coronado parks, which is not true. But at the same time, these parks would help 40 to 50 people. They would need more regulation. Some people wanted to know more of a plan, and council did vote in opposition of doing that. People were concerned about danger. People were concerned about drug trafficking, sex trafficking. They were concerned about filth, increase of crime in their areas. So again, we have to be able to respect not only those that are unhoused, but we have to also be able to respect the surrounding residents that have houses and businesses in the area too.
Mm-hmm. Let me read you, you might recognize these words, they're from you, it's a quote from you, but this goes back a little bit and it touches on a point you just made I want to expand on. Your pushback says, quote, it requires more funding, more infrastructure, more planning, more oversight, more organization, and it's definitely something that will take a lot more work, meaning this plan. I hear enforcement in there pretty loudly, and you've been pretty consistent on that from day one on this. In your scenario, how would enforcement look like? What would that look like when someone calls? Do police just automatically show up when there's homeless folks around? Describe what you mean by a little more enforcement.
Sure. When I talk about enforcement, and this is what I hear from constituents too that are asking for help, they don't want persons to be defecating on the property and in front of their businesses. They don't want tents and needles to be at public parks when they want to be able to use them as a public piece of property for their own enjoyment too, where it's safe. So when I say enforcement, I mean, in addition to trespassing, which it does exist, but there's also laws about loitering and there's laws about overnight camping. And we have not been enforcing a lot of that. We've been offering a 72-hour rule, right? And so typically when the Albuquerque Community Safety Department makes first contact with somebody in an encampment, they are offering them 72 hours to move. Where do they move to? That's part of the problem, right? So are we talking like, okay, you need to move a block away and now your 72 hours starts over again? That's not really a solution. So to me, when I speak of enforcement, I think that, I was actually talking to somebody about this earlier, where it's not that the police need to come in and just be a heavy hand and just start citing and arresting everybody. But if there is drug dealing going on, if there's drug usage going on, if there is a law being broken, then we can't continue to allow that to happen. We can't continue to offer warnings and just make sure that we're playing this shuffling game throughout our city. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure that people know that there are places, there are nonprofits that exist and that are operating and very functional with their experience and expertise. Yep. We need to make sure to leverage that. We need to work together with the other partners. I've never claimed to be an expert in treating homelessness and figuring out a solution with that, but there are people that have dedicated their lives to doing so. So if somebody is going to choose to camp and not take some of those services, then we need to look and see, hey, are they breaking a law? Because if they are, that's not okay, and we can't let that continue.
How about for businesses? There's residents and there's businesses, and businesses have been suffering in some corridors. How loud is that voice that you've been hearing from your business constituents?
Oh, it's probably, I would say, and if I had to guess, I mean, they're equally loud, okay. Right? Because you have businesses who are also residents, but you have residents that are businesses, but there's a lot of people that say that their businesses are struggling. They're getting broken into. That goes beyond just the homeless problem that we have here in Albuquerque. That's also a huge, I believe, drug problem, right? And trying to make sure that people find money to get their next fix. That's an underlying issue that we need to make sure to work on and find the solution to that. But businesses are struggling and they're suffering a lot. So we're hearing a lot from them. And a lot of the people that if they're camped in front of a business or sleeping and they have to step over a person just to walk through their front door.
You know, I have to ask you, where do we go with the homeless situation here? I hear from a lot of folks that say on one side, they're very frustrated. We're only talking 15 to 1,800 people. Why can't we get on top of this? Then there's another camp that says, oh my gosh, we're overwhelmed. You know, unless we come up with something amazing, it's not going to abate. And you mentioned earlier, things that folks do talk about all the time is it has to be part of a holistic approach with other things involved as well, meaning drug abatement, you know, getting healthy, food, clothing, all the things we take for granted. You know, our city is morphing and growing in interesting, odd ways. How do you see your personal view, Councilor? How do you see the problem being solved?
Well, and I didn't mean to laugh when you started this, but it is something that I do start to laugh at because I thought I had an idea, right? I thought I had a solution, and now I've changed my mind based off of what people have requested of me as their representative. So now I get that frequently where it's like, well, okay, so we didn't like your first idea. So now what is your next idea? And I say, no, that's not quite how it's going to work, because now we need to talk about other solutions together, right? You all made it clear that you didn't want me to just make decisions on your behalf. I do think that the people that want help, there are some of them that we can't identify and find, which is unfortunate. And that's where we need to keep going out and offering services. But as we saw with even Coronado Park, from what I was told, the different departments went out to Coronado Park weekly for a few weeks before they shut it down. Most of the time previous to that, people would decline services. They would decline being connected. Once the idea and once they heard that Coronado Park was going to be shut down and they would have to move, they had more people accepting services than they used to.
Wow.
So again, this is to me an indicator that, you know, I understand that we don't want to force people to do something against their will. I don't think we should do that either. However, we also just can't say, well, because they don't want to do this or to get help or to move to certain places, that they can continue to infringe on the other businesses and residents and people living in Albuquerque. That's not acceptable, just to say, well, we can't hurt feelings or force them into it. We have to find a way to say, you cannot continue to do this. It is not acceptable. And this is where I go back to enforcement. It's against our ordinances. It's against, you can't loiter in public. You can't do that. You can't trespass if there's signage up. And you certainly can't camp in parks overnight, right?
Thank you, Councilor Bassan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you to Councilor Bassan for taking the time to talk to us. You can watch my full interview. That wasn't the full one. You can watch the full one on our New Mexico in Focus YouTube page. Now let's bring in our line opinion panel for their thoughts on the recent votes by council. We're excited to have Serge Martinez. He's a professor at the UNM School of Law with us this week, along with Inez Russell Gomez. She's editor of the Santa Fe New Mexicans editorial page, and also Merritt Allen of Vox Optima Public Relations, one of our regulars. Glad to have you, Merritt. Thank you all for being with us this week. Now that the city has closed down Coronado Park, the only homeless encampment they've approved is facing harsh backlash from a nearby neighborhood in Martinez Town. Now, people living there say the city never reached out about putting a homeless camp nearby. One man told KRQE television now that there is some dialogue, it seems like the city doesn't have a solution after hearing from Councilor Bassan. Now, Merritt, let me talk to you about this first. Do you think the city has a workable plan here as you hear the little bits floating in or out? Or are we just making this up? Or what's your sense after hearing Councilor Bassan's reversal on all of this? What's your sense about the plan as it stands now? Where are we?
Well, I think it's clear that this administration doesn't have a plan when it comes to the unhoused, because this is the approved encampment. What about the massive encampment at Central and Tramway?
Right.
What about along the overpasses along 40? What about along Zuni, the stretches along Zuni in the International District? There are de facto encampments all over the metropolitan area, and nothing is being done. And you cannot live in the metro area and not notice this is a marked change from previous administrations. It's kind of becoming like Portland, where it's just okay. And there are certainly many root causes to homelessness, being unhoused as a lifestyle. A lot of it is mental illness and addiction. So there are interventions that I would think a more liberal government would want to do rather than just circling them into one park and saying, there you go. So I feel this is just kind of a failed state situation. And I appreciated Councilwoman Bassan's comments about, there used to be rules. You can't be in this park after 10 p.m. We're closing the park. You have to go. You can't sleep on this bench. This isn't okay. Anti-vagrancy laws. I know this sounds harsh, but I think a lot of residents are getting fed up. The plan for I-25 and Manal, I can see where there's just a solution to have them go someplace else. Well, the group who was camping in Coronado Park, they've simply just gone back to Coronado Park outside the fence.
That's right.
It's convenient, and I guess Manal and 25 isn't that far. I don't know if they'll be transported. I don't know if they would walk there. It's not a heavily residential area. But it is a heavily commercial area, and I can see where business owners might not appreciate that, and simply throwing up a couple porta potties and saying, okay, you can be here and we'll leave you alone. That's not a plan.
Yeah, good stuff there. Serge, individuals could be short-sighted. We all know that. You know that, being a law school professor. Our elected leaders have to balance those concerns, of course, while keeping a long-term plan, in quotes, plan for the future in mind. But at what point do your priorities and ideals for the greater good that was mentioned earlier by Merritt come before the complaints of constituents? You see the balancing act here. Have we moved into a new phase here?
Yeah, I think we're in the exact same phase we always are,
Okay.
which is, everybody says we got to do something. I mean, just not over here, obviously. I mean, is it a surprise that the folks in Martineztown are saying we don't want this here? Everyone always says that, right?
Right.
And we often hear people referring to, loitering laws, which we don't have in Albuquerque, anti-vagrancy laws, which we don't have in Albuquerque, for a very good reason, right? Because they were weaponized in racist and classist ways.
Yep.
To just say, ooh, that's icky, we don't want that here. But we're doing the same thing, right? Say, Mayor Keller waved his magic wand and all of a sudden we didn't have any homeless folks in Coronado Park. Well, I mean, they went somewhere, right? This is it's not a plan. It's a shell game, like try to, move folks around and hope that, see how long it takes people to complain stridently, and then we, push them off, do something, move them somewhere else. You might want to run a little crawler that says this is not a repeat, because I'll say the same thing I have said so many times, right? There is no plan here, but there is a well understood mechanism for doing this. There's no silver bullet and one simple trick that we can just do that hasn't been tried, but there's been a lot of research about housing first. You know what a great cure is for homelessness? Housing.
Thank you.
Right? It requires resources. It also requires us to stop increasing the homeless population through our, eviction process and letting people just not have a place to live because of rising rents. So coming at it from both ways, I mean, this is very straightforward. It just requires actual resources and an actual commitment to dedicate those resources to this, rather than keep doing the same thing and throw up our hands and say, well, it still didn't work. What shall we do?
That's right. That's right. I'll remind viewers that the mayor has, as we tape this on Thursday, the mayor has until Friday, you're seeing this Friday night, to either let it go when it becomes law or, make a decision here and sign off on the council's vote to create a moratorium. Inez, we wouldn't have time to air the part of the conversation I had with Councilor Bassan when I asked her about faith groups, churches, and others who are stepping in to create their own shelter and aid areas. This is an interesting part of this discussion to me. Should the city help these groups take on part of the burden if they're willing?
I think that anyone who wants to help the least fortunate among us should get help from whether the city, the state, whoever. Yes, I do think so. In Santa Fe, years ago, we had a winter where many people froze to death outside, right. And our interfaith groups got together and created the Interfaith Shelter at Pete's Place, which sadly was an old pet store. it's always kind of boggles my mind that our homeless shelter is an old pet store. But since that happened, we've had homeless people die, but not many of them have frozen to death.
Okay.
And I really think that was a great showing of how people could work together, faith communities and the city government, to create a place where people could be safe in the winter. You know, I'll say this to Albuquerque because obviously Santa Fe is going through the same thing. Lincoln Park in Las Vegas, New Mexico was shut down by the mayor because there were so many unhoused people basically ruining the park. And this is like an iconic park in Newtown when you come off Grand and up 7th Street. So we're all facing this. This isn't just Albuquerque's problem, it's across New Mexico. You can either have unsafe outdoor spaces or you can try to have safe outdoor spaces.
Right.
And while I think you can criticize leaders for saying there's not a plan, the plan is to kind of consolidate some of the encampments, make them safer, get people connected with services, and doing what Serge says is so important, getting them housed as much as you can, and treating every person who is unhoused as an individual, because a long-term street addict is going to need a different service than the person who just got divorced and her husband cleaned out the bank account and now she has no place to live.
Those are two
So we
excellent
really
examples.
have to treat every individual as an individual and find solutions that work for them, and stop evictions, stop creating more people without housing, and try to talk to the neighbors so that they can understand that maybe this camp isn't going to be the people in their front yards, you know, breaking in their houses. Because I understand why neighbors don't trust government, you know, because we all have seen people pushing carts around and, you know, foraging through our yards. And it's worrisome. It is. And you have to listen to those constituents. But you also have to understand that we're in a great upheaval and we've got to help people who need help.
That's right. Good point there. Mayor, we've got to talk about this one. The big part of the mayor's plan to address this issue is the Gateway Center. It's getting closer to opening, but as the attention around this problem grows and grows and grows, I'm starting to wonder, is one facility going to be enough to make a real difference here? Is this just the tip of something bigger? I'm Serge is saying no. You're curious on your thoughts and Serge's thoughts in a second on this. With our Gateway Center, is this the solution?
Well, there are challenges to that and the tiny homes community, which,
Yes.
you know, was
the
quite
county.
expensive and is largely vacant. The Gateway Center is a more transitional facility as a shelter, but there is a reason many prolonged unhoused people remain that way. It is a choice. And so I think there will be some reluctance, simply the logistics of getting people from these high density homeless areas to the Gateway Center, finding the people to transport them, safety, security there. The manning, all of that, the staffing, I think is going to be a challenge, and then security within the facility, because I don't know that every unhoused person they encounter is going to be a volunteer.
Serge, I want you to touch on this as well. We started talking about Martineztown here. What do the folks in Martineztown need to do here to be heard? What's missing that the city just can't walk in there and drop this situation on their backs like this?
I mean, they are being heard. Have you heard? They're in the news.
Yes.
You know, this is the classic complaint. The news, they stick a camera in your face and report what you said, and you say, no one's listening to me. We are listening. They are being heard. They have a platform, and they'll get the same response that everyone gets, right? Oh, you're right. This is too much of a hot potato, so we'll move it on to wherever we find a place where people are less organized and less willing to complain. Doesn't solve the problem. And you know, I'm not unsympathetic to the idea of having a little bit of say in what happens in your neighborhood. But you know, there are certain things that nobody really wants around, and we have to figure out a way to do it that is not, well, if someone starts shouting, then we just move on, right? I mean, like I said, I think it is a travesty that we have these encampments and outdoor spaces, because we should be focusing on permanent, stable housing, right? This is not a lifestyle or a choice Nobody wants to live on the street. Nobody wants to defecate in public. You do that because it's been, you've been kept out of other places. All of the shelters that, as Merritt alluded to, the tiny houses, tiny home village, you can't use, you can't drink. You have to, tick a bunch of boxes before you qualify for this. Well, that doesn't work for a lot of people. And as Inez was saying, meeting people where they are is what we need to be doing, right, to approach this. But this, have you been to a shelter? I would go there only as a very last resort, and that's the choice that a lot of people are making.
That's right. That's right. Good last point there. That's a key point in the decision making. Thank you all for talking through that. We're going to be doing our best to discuss this in a meaningful way in the coming weeks and months, that's for sure. We'll meet right back here at the virtual roundtable in less than a minute to address another growing problem. This time inside our jails, where staffing shortages are reaching crisis levels.
You come up to an area like this in the land that's been so well taken care of by the owner, to a facility I've come to for a decade. I got to know the animals. This is a place I would come, and horned lizards would come out from under the building, and we would see all that, and now it's gone.
There's a growing crisis at Albuquerque's Metropolitan Detention Center and at about jails all around the state right now. 5 of New Mexico's 26 county jails and detention centers are less than half staffed. Half. Searchlight New Mexico recently published an article outlining many of the issues plaguing MDC. Now, in it, reporters revealed 2 letters written over the past 13 months from a longtime guard detailing the conditions he and his colleagues work through every day. Here's one quote that stood out from Sergeant Robert Mason, quote, "The smell of people not being able to bathe for days and trash piling up in cells can be horrific," end quote. That sounds fun. How can we solve a staffing crisis when this is what everyone is hearing about working in these jails, Merritt? I mean, would you walk in even if you were unemployed? Would you want to walk into a jail and work there?
I moved back to New Mexico in 2005, and the Albuquerque Journal was running stories about overcrowded conditions at MDC. Now it's 2022.
Yep.
And I'm married to a criminal defense lawyer, and visiting MDC was his least favorite thing to do. He started taking, for a number of reasons, just taking purely federal work. And federal cases, defendants in pretrial confinement, they will not put them at MDC. They do not meet federal standards. And the feds say, no way, that's inhumane, that's inappropriate. We cannot meet federal standards. So it gets in the way of simply jurisprudence to have conditions like that. Then you move on to just simply the fact that defendants awaiting trial who are in pretrial confinement can be moved many miles away, sometimes hundreds of miles away. That's a burden for their defense lawyers. It degrades their ability to be defended really proactively. In rural areas, that's a tremendous problem because there's a shortage of public defenders. And to me, it comes down, there is only a certain pool of people we have going into law enforcement in this state, and it's a question of money. And state police gets the top, and corrections gets the bottom.
That's right.
And rural police departments are competing with corrections because of pay issues. And we only have so many people. And then you've got APS trying to hire more and more and putting more money against that.
Yep.
And it's probably more satisfying work if you're going into law enforcement. I think the corrections departments in various counties have a real uphill climb to correct this.
When you think about it, let me go to Inez on this one. It's interesting. Safety is such a concern that the public defender's office, like Merritt just mentioned, won't even let its attorneys set foot in the building to talk with clients. What has to be done here to get this thing moving? If that one anecdote doesn't do it, I don't know what can.
Well, it seems as though the people in jail are going to have a great case that they don't have an adequate defense once they go to trial, because if you can't meet with your lawyer, you can't prepare your defense. I mean, it sounds kind of simplistic, but it seems like maybe we're arresting too many people for the wrong things. That's one place to start, is we criminalize so many nonviolent offenses, and people who don't have money to pay fines or to otherwise fix whatever they're charged are stuck in jail. Then you have, of course, the really violent people that probably need to stay there. But you can't have a jail like that. I mean, New Mexico in 1980 was the scene of one of the country's worst prison riots. And in the months ahead of time, people kept saying the jail is or the prison is understaffed, the penitentiary is a mess, and then it erupted. I don't want to see Albuquerque and New Mexico have an eruption like that, where we have people die and guards hurt and inmates hurt, and say, wow, we should have prevented this. I mean, if nothing else, send the janitors from the county to clean the place. You don't have to work for the jail to go pick up trash. There are other people. Hire a temporary service. There are cleaning services. Go get one and have them take the trash out.
I'm chuckling only not because of what you're saying, because it's so simple. You know what I mean? If there's a problem, we can solve this. And I'm appreciative of your reminder of that 1980 riot. The Duran Consent Decree came out of that, as you know, Inez, in 1980. And here we are these years later. And Serge, it was mentioned earlier by Merrick, the 1995 ruling about Bernalillo County being out of compliance with this lawsuit over overcrowding. 30 years later, should there be consequences for this failure? This is the part about jail overcrowding that always stumps me. There's never any consequences for this.
Yeah, because, as a society, we are so addicted to this carceral state that, there's almost, you get no sympathy, right? If you're an inmate,
like, that's right.
You deserve what you get. And, I think, I want to just latch onto what Inez was saying, right? We keep talking about this as a shortage of guards, but it's just as easy to see this as too many people being locked up. It's almost too on the nose of a metaphor or allegory or whatever literary device this is. We have so many people in jail that we can't afford to keep them in jail. And we're saying the problem is we need to get more money to keep those people in jail, right? It's a failed experiment, a failed approach, this carceral approach that we have to everything, to locking everyone up for everything we can think of. This one-way ratchet that we've had in place for so long, right? The money that we're saying we need to dedicate more money to corrections officers. How about we just dedicate that money to housing, to social services, to food, to education? Right, and recognize and acknowledge that it's become a parody of itself when we're saying, oh, we don't have enough money to keep all these people locked up that we've incarcerated for this vast panoply of offenses, most of which are extremely low level.
Mary, I wanted you to touch on this as well, that Inez brought up. It's a good point about this nonviolent crimes and investing in other resources to keep low-level crime or criminals out of jail. MDC has been tabbed by the federal judge to hire 111 more guards in the next 2 years. If you do one without the other, will that 111 make a difference?
Well, I feel that the state has already moved in that direction to provide the tools to limit pretrial incarceration. And in Albuquerque, it's not always had good outcomes. The pretrial monitoring system has had some pretty notable failures. So I can't say, because I don't have the data, that that's a great approach. I do feel that what we've done in criminalizing minor drug possession is probably excessive. And if, with that, and, those people are not the hardcore dealers. Those are not the people who are perpetuating the problem of our drug addiction problem. And so I agree there may be some offenses that we could look at, but certainly, the removal of bonds, of bail bonds, the monitoring systems, the different things we've tried, we still have crime surging, property and violent crime surging in our state. So I'm not sure that spending less on corrections is the right issue. I'd love to say.
Merritt, let me ask you this: we have
less.
2.5 billion in new money coming on top of 3.8 billion this year. Is it a money issue? I mean, do we just start building jails? If someone said you could have all the money you want to fix New Mexico's problem, what's the best way to go about it?
Well, I like, Inez's point is just going in and looking at, well, let's hire a cleaning company.
Yeah.
There has to be a way to get staff in. MDC has had this problem for at least 17 years that I'm aware of. And the lawsuit goes back to 95, so we're looking at 25, 26, 27 years. They've been aware of this. It's kind of like some of our other perennial problems. We keep throwing money at it, but nothing gets fixed. Yeah. So perhaps some accountability at the department level would be a start.
That's a good point there. Serge, you had a point?
Gene, can I just say, we keep throwing money at it to do the exact same thing.
Right.
More prisons, more people being incarcerated. And we're every time astonished when it doesn't work. We say, we threw more money at this, crime went up. Let's throw more money at it and see if something else happens, right?
That's right.
It is frustrating to see, the same approach being taken to the same failed approach being applied to the same problem again.
I'll tell you what won't help is what happened to Sergeant Mason, who I quoted at the top of the segment, who was placed on administrative leave in retaliation for simply writing a couple of letters to some elected people. That's not going to help. That's not going to help. I'll have to wrap it up there. Sorry about that. But thank you all for your thoughts. We'll be back here at the virtual roundtable in less than 10 minutes to discuss the recent controversy over media access at the Republican nominee for governor's rallies. But first, a behind-the-scenes conversation on New Mexico's 2022 Shakespeare Festival. After tonight, there are 5 more shows at Veterans Memorial Park over the next 2 weekends. Earlier this month, I talked with 3 of the minds behind the festival. They tell me 400 years later, Shakespeare is still a vital part of our cultural fabric. Peter Kirst is artistic director. Let me start with you. Why Shakespeare, my friend? Why is he still so important in our culture, and why this New Mexico Shakespeare Festival, particularly in our community?
Yeah, well, Shakespeare is still being produced after 400 years. Somebody once estimated that there's a Shakespeare production on stage somewhere on planet Earth at every moment of every day, 365 days of the year. And the reason is that Will does the work of the theater better than other playwrights. If the work of the theater is to show us what the human experience is like. So one group of people get up and show another group of people what it's like to be a person and what it's like to go through a human life. That's what the theater's for. And Will Shakespeare, bless him, does that better than anybody else has ever done it. But the other thing about it, of course, is that after 200, 300, 400 years, he's William Shakespeare, he's part of the cultural legacy of the human race. And so when our audience comes out to see the plays, when you come out to see King Lear as you like it, you're not just seeing a great play, right? But you're also seeing a great play that millions of other human beings have been watching for the last 400 years. And so it kind of ties us all together in a way that no other theater does. So that's the shortest version of that answer I've got. And for us particularly, if I might, for the New Mexico Shakespeare Festival, 2 things. One is we believe completely that these plays are for everyone. And so that's why it's so important to us that the festival is free. These plays are not for somebody else. They're for you. They're for everybody and speak to everybody. And they're also, this is a New Mexico Shakespeare Festival. This is a homegrown festival by New Mexicans for New Mexicans. And we're really deeply committed to that. And of course, have to acknowledge our producers, the City of Albuquerque and the Vortex Theater, as being behind that vision entirely.
Julia, I'm so interested in your take on what I saw described on the website. about As You Like It. But I want to back up a little bit what Shakespeare means to you and why you wanted to jump into this situation and just be part of something that's so interesting for so many people.
I've always loved Shakespeare, but I never thought I would direct it. I never thought I would until I realized it's actually right up my alley. A lot of spectacle, you know, a lot of big things, big cast, a lot of movement, so yeah, I now have embraced it, but I did it because it scared me, quite frankly.
I can imagine that. I mean, it's it's understatement of the year. It's a complicated play to even kind of describe the characters in the storyline. Is like, what is going on here? It can be very interesting, but I've heard it described as a pastoral comedy. Would you agree with that?
Oh, it's pastoral. Yeah, we got trees. So yeah, sure, we could call it pastoral. It's a forest. It's the Forest of Arden. It's a very magical, mythical place. There's a lot of music, there's dancing, there's young lovers, there's some animosity between brothers. There's, it's kind of got it all. I keep saying to the cast, we should just put the kitchen sink right on the stage itself. And then we'll have covered all the bases. But it's so full of that kind of stuff, but it is, we joke about it, but we call it the party show of the 2022 Shakespeare Festival, because it's music and dancing, and it's not complicated. You'll be able to figure it out. Honestly, it's not that complicated. It all ends in a bunch of weddings, spoiler alert, with some dancing and music.
It's a big space. It's a big stage, which actually affords a lot of directorial opportunities, as they say.
Or challenges, as the case may be.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. I'm curious how you approach that. With a big old stage, absolutely.
It does change everything when you move out onto the actual stage. It's a stage that would probably, if it were full, would seat 600 or 700 people. The stage itself is gigantic. It's got a gorgeous backdrop of the mountains. But things like traffic noise, things like it's a public park. People are allowed to be out there when we're performing. So it's got all the challenges of outdoor Shakespeare, as well as all the benefits, because as Peter says, it's a beautiful space, a great background. There's lots of room for people to come and sit and have picnic lunches, but they also bring their children, and they also bring their dogs, and they also, people play football in the park behind the stage. And, it's challenging, but it's a whole new world of wonderful as well. We're raised in theaters that, ask you to turn off your cell phones and you don't talk during the show, and but this is a whole new thing where, there are cell phones out there people are looking at, and there are children running around, and people are talking. And, so it's actually, in all honesty, it's a lot more like Shakespeare was performed in his own day. Probably there was a lot more of that kind of thing in the open air.
Welcome back to our Line Opinion panelists for one final discussion. It's one we started last week on the show, but it's persisted as a story through the week, and we wanted to address it again. It all centers around the way media was treated at a recent rally for the Republican nominee for governor, Mr. Mark Ronchetti. Last week we told you a reporter from Source, New Mexico was denied credentials, and worse than that, was removed when he tried to attend the rally with a regular ticket. Security ID'd him with a photograph. Now, a spokesman for the Ronchetti campaign says the reporter was denied access because, quote, Source NM is a liberal advocacy group, not a legitimate news organization, end quote. Let's start where we ended last week. Merritt Allen, who gets to decide who is and who isn't legitimate media?
Well, as I've shared on the show before, I got my public relations, media relations training from the United States Navy. And that perspective is we have a free press and fair and free flow of information. So it's on you as the spokesman to manage your message as best you can, tell the truth, and be smart about it. And we have a free press, and they're going to write what they're going to write, and you need to be aware of that and manage the risk accordingly. That's how we do it. So in my private sector work, I take the same mindset, and the way I see it is there a certain amount of risk in media engagement? Well, of course, because you can't control, we're not a dictatorship, we don't control what people write. But the way the American press works, we have a free working press. They don't take bribes. We have a free press. Some are biased one way, some are biased another way. If you're smart, you know that. The Ronchetti campaign knows that. But here is a true fact that has never failed me. If you think someone is going to write a critical or negative story, that's entirely possible if you let them at your event. If you ban them from your event, you are guaranteed they will write a critical or negative story.
That's right.
So I would take the gamble, let them in and let them actually quote you and hear what you have to say, rather than make sure that they're going to absolutely run a hatchet piece on you and make more news. And what's happened is this has become a news event in and of itself.
That's right.
And it's grown more legs than was necessary.
After
To me, this was a very rookie mistake.
Let me get to the others here real
made
quick.
a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah, I have to agree completely. If they have not done this, why, come on now. Let's talk to Inez, the idea of having a photograph on hand of a reporter to match, to keep them out from, is this what we can expect from the Ronchetti administration? I mean, that's a little heavy-handed.
It is, and it's creepy. I mean, the idea that you can't go as a member of the public to see a candidate for governor is unsettling, and the fact that they went so far as to match Sean Griswold's face to his photo, that's the reporter from Source, New Mexico, is really troubling. And there's no sense that the Ronchetti campaign thinks this was a mistake or is sorry for it in any way. I was just as concerned with the idea that the press that was credentialed were corralled into an area. They didn't want them mingling with people and talking to people. I mean, what is that about? The whole point of going to a rally isn't to hear the same canned stuff from the candidate. It's to talk to individuals and say, hey, why do you like this guy? So I think media control on the part of a rookie candidate for governor is not a good sign for how that person would perform in office. So I hope that, as the campaign continues, they change how they do things.
Serge, name names here. Enrique Nell is the person who was the spokesperson who the quote was from. He's been around a long time. I worked with him back in Congresswoman Wilson's office years ago. He knows exactly what's up here. So the question remains, what are they doing here? Mr. Ronchetti worked in a newsroom for 2 decades. He knows exactly how this works. Why would he want this tagged on him?
I mean, he does know exactly how this works. And this is the new old playbook of, it was Nixon who was, maybe not the first, but famously said, never forget, the press is the enemy. Write that on the blackboard 100 times, right? Talking to Kissinger. And if you can, paint the press as an enemy, that's a savvy political move these days. It's, it's all over the Republican playbook these days. Try to fight a war with the press and then paint yourself as the victim, right? Or, another 60s politician, Hubert Humphrey, the VP under LBJ, famously said, it's always a risk to talk to the press. They might report what you said.
Right.
And so, I don't know what they're hiding or don't want being heard, or if it's just a calculated effort to, create a stir. I mean, it is something we've been talking about, and I assume that plays to a big part of Ronchetti's base to be like, the media is the enemy and they don't like you, so therefore
it's like empty calories, though. It's like a snack food, that's the part, binging on this kind of thing.
Inconsistent with healthy, democratic debate and public discourse and whatnot.
There's that bit, right.
Politics have been divorced from healthy, public policy for quite some time.
Yep.
To be fair, how many times has Governor Lujan Grisham agreed to appear to be on New Mexico PBS?
A big zero. It's a goose egg at this point. Yeah. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. There's different ways to do this. I'll say again, sorry. And she's coming next week. The word from the booth. There you go. Won't be the first time.
In 2.5 years.
That's
I mean, I find our current governor is remarkably inaccessible to New Mexico's free press.
Right.
She just doesn't respond to press requests. She ignores them. She is a big believer in the canned press availability, and that's a different way of avoiding media scrutiny. So I'm not a fan of that either.
Well, let's go back to Senator Pete Domenici. He never really dealt with a lot of press when it was election season, never really had to sit down for debates, all that kind of a thing. Merritt, let me ask you this. In defense of Enrique Nell here, does he have a point? that he cited the money going from the parent organization to Source New Mexico was from the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, AFSCME, and that is his reason for the heartburn. Does that make sense to you?
I wonder, and I like Enrique as well, but
Sure.
I wonder how the campaign would have felt about a journalist sponsored by the Heritage Foundation or Hillsdale College.
Right. Excellent point. Especially your first one, Heritage. Exactly right. They would be all over it if they walked in the door. There's no doubt on that. This is very interesting. We'll have to see where it goes. I agree with Merritt. I think, this got bigger than it should have, only because, little red meat got thrown out there for, 10 minutes worth of chewing, and now here we are 2 weeks later. So thanks again to our line panel as always this week. Be sure to let us know what you think about any of the topics, not just this one. We covered on our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages. Now, before we go, a look back at the impact of the largest wildfire in state history, the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon Fire. It destroyed hundreds of homes along with critical infrastructure, water systems, acequias, power lines, internet service, cell phone towers, even the New Mexico PBS translator in Mora that sends our signal across the northern part of the state. While losing a piece of equipment doesn't match the personal loss of a home, it can have a widespread impact on how people are able to receive valuable information during a crisis. This week, our land crew takes us to Mora, where our colleagues in the engineering department have had to rebuild.
We are in Mora, New Mexico, and we are sitting on top of the only transmission facility in this part of the state. So the Calf Canyon and Hermit's Peak fire swept through this area. It burned the entire facility, 29 power poles, all the wires, and it burned our facility completely to the ground, ashes. So total destruction. So we knew that we had a few facilities in the state that were in the path of the fire, and this was one that we expected to lose. The day we did, the winds were reported to be in excess of 70 miles an hour up here, and the fire skipped through quickly. It was the worst case scenario for us. First thing is, it was sad. Come up to an area like this in the land that's been so well taken care of by the owner, to a facility I've come to for a decade. I got to know the animals. This is a place I would come, and horned lizards would come out from under the building, and we would see all that, and now it's gone. It's incredibly sad, but then the next thing that comes to me is how do we get it back? How do we get back to where we need to be, and how do we get operating as quick as we can? And that's what we did. We, instead of lamenting our loss, we just looked to the future, and we've already set a new building on the ground. There's not even power on the mountain yet. The KNME tower is right behind us, and the other facilities up here. We've got state weather, internet service for the area, and then major carriers for the cell phones are in the other two remaining towers. The KNME tower here is the last link in what we call a daisy chain. We feed Apache Mesa, which is Tecolote, directly from Sandia Crest, and then that in turn feeds this tower. So when this tower was down, there was no television to the entire valley. That would include commercial carriers.
Oh, it's paper.
I think people are very used to, and we have been for a long time, we turn the button on, and that's the last thing you do. If it doesn't work, you rage at the machine. But there's an incredible amount of infrastructure. To turn my one building on here, right now I'm going to, just directly involved in this, there's probably been several hundred, 200 or 300 people directly involved in the effort that just allows us to stand on the top of this hill today. There's people going forward from insurance companies, all the suppliers of the equipment we use. This is millions and millions of dollars to put me here, to turn it on, to provide a signal, entertainment or education to people. It seems easy, but there's a full-time 365-day-a-year commitment to the work that's required to make us reliable. You can see that power lines are cut to a degree through properties to provide some easement, one for construction, but the other is to give them a buffer from fires. The same thing happens on the hilltop. We don't just clear them out for ease for us, but we clear them out to keep fire back. The areas are typically maintained, low brush. We try to find areas that can take a fire and then bounce right back. You cannot protect completely, especially in a forested environment, but you can mitigate as much as you can by being a good tenant, and then having a plan in place for when it happens.
Yeah, this was probably one of my favorite sites.
We're going to continue to see forest fires like this. As the climate is drier, they're going to be worse. They're going to be more out of control. We need to be good stewards of our forests. And I think that people, when it's out of sight, it's out of mind, but we need to start looking at what's over that hill and how can we prepare for the super fire that's coming through here tomorrow.
Some final thoughts here and a quick question. So what exactly comes next in this homeless encampment saga? Lines have been drawn between City Council and the Mayor's office. The community wants action right now. There's no sector of the city that hasn't been touched by the unhoused looking to get through the night. If you haven't seen the map on KOAT's website that shows all the encampments around the city, it's not just a downtown problem. In my interview with Councilor Bassan, it's clear we are now moving into an enforcement stage, meaning parks are going to be cleared, we're hearing, alleys downtown scrubbed of the unhoused and the like. The Coronado Park clearing was just the beginning. The community, particularly the business owners in our city, are looking for more vigor in the approach, but a question begs, where are we going to jail all these unhoused trespassers and lawbreakers? Even before we get to the issue of understaffed jails like we covered earlier in the show, the idea of parading potentially many hundreds of people to either pay fines or go to jail in an already overtaxed legal system doesn't seem workable long term. It seems clear now that we have a serious disconnection between the Mayor's office goals and the City Council's goals on this. The closing of Coronado Park has only increased that tension. And something has to give here. We are only talking 1,500 to 2,000 people. This isn't San Francisco. If it's resources we need, we are swimming in cash. We have the means. Perhaps it's a matter of the will at this point. Thanks again for joining us and for staying informed and engaged. We'll see you again next week in Focus.
Funding for New Mexico in Focus provided by viewers like you.